Hey, Jeff Andersen here with Clam Outdoors. Nowadays, with advanced technologies and fishing rods, there is a huge variety and types of different styles of rods and reels. I'm going to really break down each style, from noodle rods to spring bobber rods to spooler reels to spinning reels, and how I use them for the specific applications and style of fishing. So stay tuned. I hope that you're going to learn something great and how to choose a fishing rod that's going to put more fish on the ice for you. So starting off, I'd really like to dive into the difference between a spooler style reel compared to a spinning style reel. Now this is a really advanced style spooler reel. This is called the Gravity from Clam. And the great thing about this spooler reel is the quick ability to drop and free fall, let it just drop down without having to pull it out. It really works great. But if I'm gonna choose a spooler reel, and the reason I'm going to choose a spooler reel is because of line twist. That's the main reason that you have this style of reel on there. The negative part about this is it does fall a little bit slower than a spinning reel. So I'm going to use this probably in about 12 feet or less. But it is a fabulous reel for chasing bluegills, especially because what happens when you get line twist, your tungsten jig really kind of twirls around in a circle, and that's a negative attribute to your lure. You don't want your lure to do that. You want your lure to sit straight and where you can pound that jig. So this is the Gravity reel teamed up with the 27 ultralight. Now if you look, scepter rod. Now if you look at this rod, you can go down and look and see this spring bobber. Now, when I'm going to choose a rod with a spring bobber is, again, I like fishing pretty shallow water with a spring bobber, but that's not really what's going to be the deciding factor. It's when I'm using a tungsten style jig. This is a drop kick jig. There's the drop TG. There's tons of different tungsten style jigs. So if I'm using tungsten, I usually have a spring bobber. The reason I do that is because I can really detect those bites, whether it's a bluegill, perch, crappie. I can really hone in on that presentation. Another thing that the spring does is it has an effect on that tungsten, so when you can get it pounding, you can get it bouncing up and down. So not only do you choose your rod, your reel, and your style, your tip style based on the fish that you're fishing, you're doing it based on your presentation. It's very important to understand how this has an effect on your lure. So unlike this one, if you look, this is the voltage rod. Now this is a great series of rods, very economical, very inexpensive, and it's a great fishing rod and a great entry-level fishing rod for anybody looking to get in. Same thing, it has a spring bobber on it. You can see I have the ant drop on there, a great presentation for perch. I really like this gold ant drop for perch. We're on Leech Lake today. This is a great combination. So this rod I would use for perch fishing. It's a little bit more stout. You could use it for crappie fishing, and you could use it for bluegill fishing. But really, my go-to bluegill crappie killer is this ultralight Scepter. This is just a fabulous rod. It's really light in the hands, and it's ultra comfortable to fish. You can really have a good presentation. Now let's look at the noodle style. So now if I'm gonna fish crappies, and this is one of my favorite presentations, you've seen me talk about this a lot. This is the 16th ounce blade spoon without the rattle in it, and I have it teamed up with a Mackie Spiky. As you can see, this spoon is pretty beat up, but I fish this spoon, and I could fish this on a spring bobber, but I found way more success with a noodle style rod. This is the Legacy Series 30-inch ultralight, Dave Ginn's Legacy Series. This is a high-end fishing rod, and it fishes very nice. And what makes it a high-end is the nice wind grip. It's nice and comfortable in your hands. It's got a pretty strong backbone, right? And then it leads off, and you can see how it's almost a 90 degree. And what that does is when you drop your spoon down, you can sit there. I'm just gonna drop it down a little bit here, and you can really get this thing pounding like this, and you can actually hear that line pop, 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 pop. And what that does is it gets this spoon to rock back and forth and back and forth. And when you're looking at your electronics and you get that crappie to move on it, then all of a sudden you can see just that lightest doop, just like that, with that super nice yellow chartreuse tip. It's a nice noodle. and then it loads right up, and it's a really, really fun rod to catch them on. I do use this rod for perch fishing, but I'm using tungsten a lot more when I'm fishing perch, especially here on Leech Lake with a big giant plastic or a minnow head. But this is a great presentation for perch. And the great thing about this is you can catch almost any fish that swims on the ice with a spoon. Smallmouth bass, walleyes, pike, all that type of thing. All right, now let's look into a little bit bigger rod. Still with the tungsten. This is a new Spider Series 24 Ultralight. This is a great rod. Now, if I was fishing inside a fish house, like a permanent shack or something like that, I would try to tone down my rod length, because you're a lot of times when you're in a permanent shack, you're fishing a lot closer quarters, right? This is another entry series rod. You can fish anything with this: perch, you can fish crappies, you can fish walleyes. Great rod, pretty parabolic, you know, even bend all the way through, and just a great all-around fishing rod. The Ice Spider by Clam. This is a 24-inch. My kids love using this rod. Like I said, it's a great all-around rod, and if you're looking for just a do-all fishing rod that's durable, that probably isn't going to break just because it is built so durable, got a nice bend to it, you can catch anything on this. Now, if I'm going to step up my game a little bit and go after some bigger predators, let's talk about probably some rods that I'm going to use for walleye. This is, again, the Voltage. This is a 28-inch light. 28-inch is a great all-around size length of a fishing rod, just because you can fish a 28 in a fishing shack, or you can fish it outside. This one is a light, but it's got some beef to it, so it's pretty nice rod. And if I'm going to use a swimming style like the Tikka minnow here, I have this rigged up for crappies and perch. The reason you want a little bit stouter rod is when you're ripping this jig up and down, you don't want it to flex too much, because if it flexes, it affects that action, and then it actually adds a big boing to it. And when I say boing, that lure kind of shoots up and goes everywhere. So you don't want it to respond too soft, because when you go to jig, it takes a little bit, and then when it gets to the top, it does this, and then you have tons of slack in your line. Slack in your line is never the best thing in the world, because when the fish bites, it's really hard to detect it. So the great thing about Clam and these entire series of rods, this is, again, the Voltage series. If you really like this look of this rod, all these series comes in all these different options. Yeah, it comes in spring bobbers, it comes in a light action, a heavier action. There's a large variety in all the different series that I'm talking about. And it's important for you to understand that you know, if you like the Scepter rod lineup, you have many options there. If you like the Voltage, you have the mini series options. If you like the Ice Team Professional, a little bit upgraded rod, you have many options in each of those lines. I'm just trying to go through why and how I choose a specific rod, whether it's one with a spring bobber or a noodle. So let's take a look at a different one here. If you want to have a little bit more higher end rod, I also use the Dave Gins Legacy Series walleye rods as well, but this is the Ice Team Carbon Series. The Carbon Series is, you know, it's got a great real carbon grip, so it looks really nice. It has a great feel, very sensitive, and this has just a tremendous action. You can see just a beautiful action. And you know, when we talk about rod action, why is that important? Well, you heard me talk about the rod action has an effect on your presentation, but also when you're fighting a big fish, especially like a 28-inch walleye or 29-inch walleye or a big lake trout, what happens is those big head shakes, and you want to be able to absorb big head shakes. If you don't absorb those big head shakes, again, that's how fish, the hook rip out. So again, your rod's loaded up, it's doing big head shakes down there, but you're keeping nice, easy tension on those big head shakes. And most times when fish get off, I would say probably 80% of the time when a fish gets off is when it's doing big head shakes, when it's only 6 inches under that hole. You get a little bit excited and you try to force it up, and it does this big hard rip, and it rips out of their mouth, or there gets to be a little slack. So that's why a rod action is really important to match it to your presentation. So again, this is a great action, 28-inch. This is light action, but it's great for a spoon. You know, if I'm fishing walleyes, Lake of the Woods or whatever it might be, this is a great rod. Now, if I'm fishing Lake Winnipeg walleyes, I would step up to that 30-inch It's a 30-inch Ice Team Professional Series. That is a really great big walleye rod. This is a great all-around walleye rod. I would use this anywhere, anyhow. I'd even use this perch fishing. So again, spinning reel if I'm fishing deeper water and I need a good drag system for bigger, stronger fish. Spooler reel to finesse down, to eliminate line twist and to get really finessey for those fish that may come in and not bite. And water usually under about 12 feet. I say 10, 12 feet. That's when I'm using a Spooler style reel. Spring bobber when I'm fishing a tungsten or a small jig. A spoon, I'm using a Noodle rod. Now hopefully that helps you kind of sort through and help your rod buying decision a little bit more simple. Again, remember, your rod action has an effect on your presentation. Your job as an angler is to understand how that rod and your jig cadence is how it has an effect on what jig you're using and what spoon, what plastic, what minnow head you might have on there, what minnow tail you might have on there. All those different variables, your job as an angler is to intimately understand what your presentation is doing under the ice. When you do that, you can find out what that trigger factor is and you can seal the deal on more fish. I'm Jeff Andersen with Clam Outdoors.
Clam Outdoors. Pursue the ice.